welcome to another episode of Unleashing Genius. This is a reminder, it's a series that is a set of executive conversations about what's changing across industries as AI, data, and shifting business transformation and demands reshape how our organizations are running. In each episode, we're looking at what is the pressure that's building, what assumptions are breaking, and what it takes to respond in a way that holds up over time. And a lot of people can talk about, as we know, what's possible, but this series is a shift from possibility to execution and what it takes to turn new ideas into systems and workflows that perform at scale. Today, I'm actually super excited about this conversation because we're going to be looking at a shift that touches every marketer directly. This is a path that buyers take to find and trust a brand, and that path has changed. A lot of what we built for the old path, it just no longer works. And as we are all learning, and maybe even more than learning, as we're all experiencing, discovery is now not just happening not outside of our own control, but inside of the AI answer. It no longer happens on the direct website or on a search results page. It's happening in the query. And so that changes what content is for, and it changes what a brand is for, what a website is for. Today, I am joined by Izzie Rivers, the CEO and founder of Realm B2B and the founder of Ray Technologies, which is an AI platform built for enterprise media planning and buying. And we, Izzie, are going to dig into how all of that change is actually impacting media. So welcome to Unleashing Genius, Izzie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm glad you chose such a small topic for us to talk about today.
I like to, give my guests time to really go deep, Izzie, and that's what we're going to do. So listen, let's start with, I'm going to call it an easy softball one, right? Because marketers, you and I've been in this industry and this business for a little while. We used to measure success by traffic, maybe to owned properties. What actually happened to traffic? And what did it teach you about the metrics about what we're doing in media that are still going to matter?
Yeah, great question. All right, let's start with, it would be really interesting to have a year where there wasn't a seismic change in the media industry for, B2B
but
or
would that
B2C.
be fun then, Izzie?
No, it's just part of the reason we all love our job, isn't it? To do these things. Yeah, site traffic is phenomenally important, and getting people to your own properties wherever you can so you can control the narrative and what you want to say to somebody is the ideal for sure. LLMs, as we know, have come in and kicked that a little bit to the curb over the last year and a bit. I think it was Gartner was saying 5% of all searches are now through LLMs. I suspect that's a lot more for B2B, and we're definitely seeing that disruption with traffic. Sometimes 60% down for some clients that are perhaps a little bit more generalized, 30% down for those that are a bit more specific.
Do you think that was deeper than what people anticipated?
Yeah, I do. I think we should have learned better by now. When you see those charts where it's adoption of new platforms and it's like Meta took this long to get 1 million users and, OpenAI took 30 seconds to get 100 million users on the platform, whatever it is. We should have known that the change was going to be really, really fast. We're not good at learning that, I don't think, but I think it surpassed even the expectations that we had, to be honest, that it would make so much of a difference. And Gartner are predicting that 50% of all search behavior will be LLMs by 2028. And I suspect that's probably a low ball as well.
So what's the right response then? Do we chase the traffic or do we do something else?
Well, there's always going to be a role for your owned platform.
Correct.
Always. If somebody wants to buy from somebody, they want to check out that's a real person that does what it says on the tin. But the resurgence in brand is no surprise. A lot of the clients we work with are increasing their brand budgets this year and next. I don't think that that's a shock, because now you're having to push messaging into other areas, which raises a profile.
Yeah.
So chasing people, I guess, has always been our job as marketers versus chasing traffic. So your point earlier was an interesting one, I think, is with what's the metric? How do we now know that we've got resonance with the people that matter, rather than just seeing traffic to a landing page, and whether or not that's even the right landing page, I don't know.
It is remarkable how what's old is new, but with a new twist, right? We're persona marketing, always important. ABM, always important. Media, always important.
Yeah.
brand, now important more than ever. So you've watched a lot of brands go through this reckoning. And I should be honest for our listeners, Izzie is an advisor to me as well. So where do you see the teams get this right? And where do you see teams kind of default to maybe the old playbook, even if old is new? How do you update that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I think a lot of people are trying to self-solve. A lot of marketers or departments in marketing teams are looking for the best information they can get hold of to make changes to try and affect the numbers, right? And they're often finding answers that fit their niche because that's the way they think. And that's an expectation, and bless them for doing it as they should be. But I suppose the challenge in that is, how do you ask the right questions of that information you're coming across to truly understand? I'll use an example. It's always good to use an example.
Love
Let's take
example.
social media, right? If you ask an LLM or go online and look, it will tell you that social channels, particularly LinkedIn and Meta, are one of the top cited and used platforms to appear in an LLM, right? But if you dig under the hood of that, it's users of those platforms referencing your brand that makes the real difference. So you don't necessarily even control that. You can't just go onto your own platform on LinkedIn, onto your company page, and just put out more information. You need to make sure that lots of people are talking about you on LinkedIn. Still a brand job, arguably, I would say. Not as simple as controlling your own platform, and an employee job. So, but you could have somebody in that discipline that reads it and goes, I know, I'll just do awesome content, answer shaped content on my own page and it'll fix the problem. And it's not the right question to ask.
So let's go into that content. I love that kind of, what's different about what's old is new. Let's apply it to content. If it's really about who is still engaging with content and who's writing that content, does the content have to change? Does long form content still work, or is it, that's an old form, right? That's how people read, not necessarily how they search.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a challenge because it's still important for SEO. And SEO still is 95 to 70%, 80%, depending on what you believe.
Go balance that out, right? So you you just confirmed you need an LLM strategy and an SEO strategy. Full stop.
You do. Yeah,
Okay.
you do. And you might end up with really long articles that no one's going to read, but it ranks you better in pages. But the front 20% is shaped for an LLM, because an LLM only probably reads the top 20% of a page and then it gives up. So even the LLMs are bored of reading really long blogs on company websites.
How about video? Is video still a viable option?
Massively. Absolutely massively. LLMs love video content. It still has to be relevant. Technical ones do better. Third-party ones, again, do better. My favorite thing is, I've got a friend of mine that does an AI podcast or vodcast on LinkedIn, and he waits a blank minute after the video's finished and then just starts speaking to the microphone like, I am the world's best podcaster for... And it literally creates content for the LLM, which is going to hear it after somebody else has dropped off at the end. So there's lots of hacks you can put in videos, not recommended by me. But
you know what? That's what we're going to do at the end of this. At the end of this little podcast, I think that's an awesome
a little extra thing at the end of the credits.
So literally, what you're saying is that, listen, what's old is new, definitely. But so you can't get rid of what's old, but you have to lean into what's new, and you have to look at your content. You have to look at kind of your approach to say, maybe the priorities have shifted. Maybe you should be going more into brand and employee guidance instead of just, posting. Maybe you should be looking at your content so that you have long form and short form, but you're feeding both engines. Basically, you're just expanding your footprint, and you're doing it in a way, you all know how to do this. You just are doing it in a way that ministers to the engines differently.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those engines will become more encompassing. I mean, they'll eat the entire ecosystem eventually. And I think we'll stop having discussions about what are the best platforms to be on. It will be about what is the best content and how many individuals are reacting to it and using that language.
I love that, because that is now more forward thinking, right? Don't just solve for today, solve for the future, which is, if you're building the right content now, then you are getting to the future. You're right. At some point, because we already know that AI eats data, right? So we've said it on this podcast before, and specifically with LLMs, it can have consumed as much of the universe as out there. So when we talk about this, are all buyer questions treated the same way by AI systems? You know, this kind of goes back to, we talked a little bit about content, we talked about destination. How do we talk about, you know, persona-based marketing, the buyers? How do they still get treated the same way by the AI systems, or is that taken care of in their query in terms of how AI will answer them?
I mean, it's mostly the second at the moment. The LLM, well, arguably, you should say that the LLM should know who's logged in. Now, whether or not they can use that PII to make the experience more customized, I'm not sure. Netflix manages it, so I'm sure OpenAI and the others will
Right.
manage it at some point. But at the moment, for example, purchasing even paid media in LLMs, you can't do any audience-based targeting around. You can only do based on keyword and query. So that makes me think that that's what they're leaning into language as opposed to personas. That you can make, you know, more educated guesses, I think, perhaps on what a CEO might be interested in versus an engineer or a VP of infrastructure, for example, based on what they're looking for. Again, old, but making it new seems to be where it is at the moment.
So paid media is still a very big role and one of the most reliable ways to get to that differentiation in buyer.
Yeah,
Love
definitely.
that. All right, so let's pivot to you a little bit, because I want to give you a platform to talk about how you've pivoted, because we've been talking about how marketers pivot, but you as an agency for a long time decided to make a pivot before anybody else, right? You spent, I think it's 2 decades in media buying before you decided to build an AI platform for yourself. What do you think drove you to see this in the industry that you're in, to service that industry different, and why did you jump?
Yeah, I mean, I should probably start by saying I do love the industry. Like, I love my industry and what I do. I'm not ripping up the rule book for any nefarious reasons. A lot of the disruption that's happened with AI has been in the creative fields, which blows my mind, honestly. I mean, why take the most human creative elements of who we are as a species and use AI for that first? I think that's very odd. Whereas if you look at paid media and planning and buying, it's predictable, it's spreadsheets, it's optimizing to predictable indicators that you're looking for pluses and minuses on. It's a very repeatable,
Yeah.
sometimes exhausting, and I prefaced with I love it, so this is okay, but sometimes exhausting industry to live in. And even Martin Sorrell at Cannes, he got on a stage and says, I'm a bit astounded as to why media isn't the first thing that's being disrupted by AI. And I thought, yes, well, we're ahead of you by a year and a half. So yeah, it's an industry that's ripe for it, and AI will make it better. I think that's something that gets lost sometimes. Yes, it should be more efficient. Yes, it should be faster, but it also needs to be made better by AI, and you can do that in predictable formats. Creative areas and things like that, everyone's always got an opinion, but I love math that's mathing.
I love that. Math is mathing. So your goal was never to replace the people. It was to basically create a system to carry the repetitive load, so that their expertise, the media expertise, actually goes further, right?
It's about putting the power back in the hand of the user and the client as well, I think. Take all the media experts that you acquire from, if you look at an agency model, for example, put all that knowledge and understanding in one place and be able to tap into it in a combined way, in an individual way, if you want to, if you're just doing something in one particular discipline, and use that intelligence to build something that's better and then constantly learns. And a machine can just do that at scale more easily, perhaps. I won't say better, but probably better. Certainly more easily than a human can.
Right.
And at the moment, I don't think that we have the time to do a good job at that, because there's so much to do in our day. You know, it's that typical, I've had a day of meetings and now I don't have time to do my job thing. Well, it can do the job. So that's the thinking.
Yeah. So what we're really looking at here is, instead of just making AI, what we talk about a lot, it seems like, is AI in marketing is like a thin layer of, let's say, not just even governance, but repetitive task, it's optimization. But when you were thinking about it, you were looking to build something specifically for this job that could be integrated into other components, so that it wasn't just media, right? It was, I can fix the repetitive load here, which will have resulting impacts across the board, so that there is more integration. Is that kind of generally how you would think about and describe what Ray does for people who use it?
Yeah, I mean, if you hit the nail on the head there, Ray is definitely an integrator because it has to take so many things together to build a picture of something. So there's 120 publishers in the platform already. There will be more. Ray doesn't seek to be a kingmaker for where the money should go. It should be done on the best results, not on who the platform prefers. So the integration across the AI abilities and the great work that publishers are doing needs to be in there too. We can't do better search optimization with AI than Google can. It would be foolish to think so. And then on the client side as well, there's a lot of mundane tasks that hang off a media plan or a media strategy. Like, what creative do I need? What trafficking do I need to do? How can I pipe clean media data into an internal dashboard in a way that makes sense rather than getting my analytics team loads of CSV files they don't know what to do with, So
Well,
yeah.
it's always what value does it have, right? That's what marketing is always looking to establish metrics that result in the ultimate value, which is pipeline and revenue. And by doing this, it sounds like what you're saying is that we're not just looking at a thin wrapper. We're really looking at that ability to integrate and connect so that the obvious result, the obvious outcome is more apparent.
Yeah, and automate across those platforms. I mean, one thing that's always very difficult for agencies is not being able to get the information from a client they require to do deeper optimizations and really understand that effect on the pipeline, because agencies can't be given that level of data. It's a security nightmare to get that outside of a company and in somebody else's hands.
Right.
So, and then often internally at clients, you have silos, and that makes it a bit of a challenge to try and stitch those things together. So I think that that's a bit of a secret sauce, really, is taking media planning and buying and making it a platform that's part of that ecosystem
Yeah.
instead of a bunch of people. We've got very strong security guardrails that we can put around that and just make it part of that pipe.
I think what you're describing is something that is a direct change and what people fear the most about the change to marketing, right? But you're not saying that this changes the marketing function itself. If anything, and I know a lot of people continue to be worried about that, but if anything, the roles change and people are able to do the things they've always said they wanted to do, right? They're not getting replaced. They're actually able to orchestrate in a way maybe that they've never been able to orchestrate.
Yeah, I think it's a bit difficult. So you've got to look at what's the reality versus the commercial view. That's always there's always a difference between what's really going on and the desire to save money, right? But media is like, it's a mad, mad industry. It's as mad as a box of frogs, and there's something new every day. So if you take the person that was doing this 20 years ago and they were picking up the phone and booking a full page ad in the Financial Times, and then they were probably in a bar by 3 p.m. trying to pretend they're from Mad Men, Now look at what they're doing. And no company has said, oh, you need an extra 30 people to do that. We'll fund them and put them in place. So I think media teams are already operating under an incredible amount of strain. And every time something new comes in, it's expected to just be folded in with the existing capability. God knows everybody's time poor across marketing right now. So this, I think, helps automate the load of things that just make the job more streamlined. It doesn't make people redundant. You still need people to run it.
Going to ask you to make a little bit of a prediction here. I know we're still looking at how this changes agencies. What does this do to the agency landscape?
Oh, I don't think I did.
Come on.
On the VC decks, we're saying it's an agency killer. Is that allowed? But I mean, it's going to fundamentally change media agencies for sure, because we've digitized the expertise, and the expertise is really what agencies bring to the table. And that's certainly the area I've been involved in for such a long period of time. Keeping up with the innovation, being able to recommend the new partners that make the most sense. Is there still going to be a role for agencies in media? Yes, there's always a role for an independent third party to come in and support. Whether that's more consulting, it's certainly going to be less actually running it. And in fact, we've seen that over the years, right? When search first came out, it was all run by an agency because no one knew how to do it. Now there's so few people that outsource their search or their paid social, because why would you? That's your data.
And you've learned how to do it. Exactly.
Yeah. It's not the really complicated, terrifying thing that we thought that it was. And actually, it's easier to run it closer to business because we're the ones that know the right keywords. What the agency is not putting the right ones in,
Let's blame
No.
the agencies. We're not going to blame any agencies here. It was just, it was just one of those hot little questions.
As I say, I still love it. I've worked in agencies for decades. I feel like but it needs to happen and it's going to happen. And I think it should be done in the right way.
Last question. So this shift, is it making real that which we've always wanted to do? Does AI make why we're in marketing and us contributing to the bottom line and growing a company's brand that leverages growth? Like, does this do what we've always wanted to do?
I think so. I mean, why did you get into marketing / advertising / what do you love about it? It's not spreadsheets, is it?
No, I want to go make a market. I want to help my company grow and reap the benefits. I want to be at the forefront of that. Yeah, I don't want to do spreadsheets.
No, and I want to talk to other people that are passionate about the same things as me. And occasionally I want to wear high heels and stalk around a boardroom, Gabie. I don't want to be doing like Excel spreadsheets till 2 o'clock in the morning, just to track things because a machine can't do it. So
I love that. Okay, so marketing not dead. Coming out, emerging like a phoenix from where it's maybe been split up for years and people thinking they can do marketing, but now there's a real opportunity to go back to basics as a growth driver. Second is that AI is definitely an opportunity, but you have to look at all of the engines, not just one single engine. It can change how you do content. It can change how you think. It can change for you how you have agency relationships. And really it's moving from shortcuts into business-led brand building, which is what we always wanted. I mean, Izzie, amazing, right?
I love it. I love the new anyway. And
You're a little bit of a rebel. That's why we invited you on. You are definitely a case study for unleashing genius. So Izzie Rivers from Realm Agency and owner of Ray, thank you for joining me on this episode of Unleashing Genius. Honestly, this is what turns AI into something that is into a dream, right? And something that we can all aspire to. So thank you for making it possible.
thanks for having me.